When it is going to be implemented in poor countries.
Pardon?
You say when it is going to be implemented in poor countries. You use the word that when. You seem to assume that this is going to happen in places like India. Do you think that this is do you think this is a realistic assumption?
In India, there has been pilot projects, so it happened with a small community, so that they were given like 150 or something. I don't remember exactly the numbers, but they were given like $150 or something like that a month. So and basically the people who try to introduce this is not only a leftist thing, because the income, it's better not to connect the income to labor, because there is no labor anyway, so they need some social insurance system, and it happened in India, and it might happen. The only thing is that in India it was like $150, and in Switzerland the object of the referendum was 2,500 Swiss francs for all the citizens each month. So it is not unrealistic in India, it's only the difference of amounts.
That's very interesting. I thought it was more utopian.
Yes. No.
I just want to add on top of this question. It's a very interesting question, because currently basic income is a big discussion, especially from the perspective of the techno-utopians, that is Silicon Valley. For instance, what's being discussed is very interesting. They discuss, like, at the moment, what if we give everybody, some basic income, and what will happen? They try to do experiments. This is also done in, I think, Holland and maybe in Belgium as well. One interesting discussion here is, I think, like, what happened to the social government, right? Like, rather than having a basic income, we can think about the basic education, basic healthcare, and so on and so forth. So this is very important. Like, are we bypassing those questions when we were discussing basic income? Of course, in your case, it's more like basic income to the artist, but I still I wouldn't agree on this too much. I would say. It's like sidelining the core discussion of the social government.
It's not always the leftist idea, because it's taken from other taxes like VAT tax or other taxes from consumption, and also when this basically I didn't read all the models, but this RSA, Royal Society of Arts model, says that people who has more than 2 children, they don't get it anymore, and they say that it is very useful, because the lower classes they stop work, because if they have social benefit, because they are running danger that they lose social benefits. So like in Hungary, when a Roma family has like €100 each month from social welfare for each person above 18. And but then if they start to work, and if they make one woven basket for me, then they lose all the social benefits, because they are no longer unemployed. And if there is a basic income, it is not connected to unemployment or employment. So if you have a better job, you still receive this money.
Can I make one comment to Miglena? Actually, I think it is just to pay attention, because this mirroring between socialist realists and the abstract forms, there is a artwork painting made by Art and Language, actually in 1980, called The Portrait of Lenin in the Style of Jackson Pollock. It is yes, but apart from this, they made this painting, which looks like one Pollock's ordinary painting, but when you look from far, you recognize figure of Lenin. But interesting is the text which they wrote about it, and all these discussions they wanted to put regarding all these theories you mentioned of Serge Guilbault and Max Kozlov, if CIA was supporting abstract art, and whether the abstract expressionism was the tool of the Cold War cultural politics, which they were definitely opposing Art and Language. showing that at the moment when the Jackson Pollock in fact did his abstract pieces, CIA was not supporting him. CIA started to support Jackson Pollock and others. At Reinhardt, when already their most creative period was over. So support was never given to Jackson Pollock, what was given to mediators of a Jackson Pollock. And this was intervention of art and language.
So really, I'm not, how to say this idea is not really subjecting to any doubt or manner of critique to the artists themselves. Pollock did what he did, and he was used. Whatever, if we look at this table again, I'll probably refine it a little bit later, we'll see that certain things are not neutralized through the meeting point, so to say, of the two sides of the mirror. So it is more complicated, but my idea was that while Eastern artists, and Yugoslavia is a special case because it was a freer space from there was a greater freedom here in the realm of culture, of philosophy and so on and so forth. But Eastern artists saw in the mirror of the West their own dream of freedom. But what the message of, so the other direction, what the message of the East towards the West was, and what, according to certain accounts of this CIA thing, really caused their interest in supporting art, was precisely the huge emphasis which the socialist countries put on art and culture as a way to educate the masses and so on and so forth. So whatever we speak, it is not the same today. There is not such an emphasis on the importance of art and culture as there used to be during the Cold War.
I like your scheme. So it proves that there was not such a big difference in general terms between East and West. So it was political, doesn't matter about the details in the first phase and then market. But the third point, which is about lost utopia, it's for me it is not very clear because I don't know what is lost utopia in the West today. But if you read Buden, and you refer to Buden as well, he's talking about, looking for the commons, actually, also. You had this question, where is the commons here, or if I remember. So I think that he has an answer, at least for former Yugoslavia, artists, that they are looking for the society through cultural translation. So everything what is about the commons, about the society of solidarity, is kept in the artwork today, not so much in the social discussions or even philosophical discussion, but mostly in the cultural sphere. And I don't know how it is with this question in the West. So this is for me still an open question. Or rest of Eastern Europe, maybe. But in Russia, yeah, I would say there are some similar intentions in the art. So there are Russian artists who are going back to the Russian genuine Marxism, like Lifshitz and so, so there are works who try to remember something that is socially forgotten.
Yeah, I guess it's a longer question, a longer discussion, but it's precisely, there are different types of efforts to fill in the vacuum which appeared after this exchange of fantasy became no longer possible. Because this is, maybe I didn't say it clearly enough, there is a lot of fantasizing going on, so there is a projection of fantasy in both directions, and certainly the projection from which the East emanated and was perceived by leftist artists and thinkers in the West was the idea of a social validity of art, which is has broad implications for everybody, and it contributes to social justice and contributes to raising the consciousness of masses, whatever. Yeah, yes, but, and this again vanished with, and so of course we can go on. Then mass culture stepped in.
A comment, maybe go back 2 questions, but you were mentioning CIA and Pollock, and there is, you're probably familiar with the case, but there was a department in MoMA in New York. It was a department established after the Second World War for sending traveling exhibition on American art abroad. And this department was supported by the Rockefeller Foundation and the CIA. And curiously, there was an exhibition, Modern Art in the USA, that was sent to Europe in 1956, to Western Europe. And the only place in Eastern Europe that the exhibition was shipped to was Belgrade. And in our exhibition here, you can see reference to that exhibition in the work by... Yeah, Walter Benjamin. Yeah, so that's just a short comment. His comment about that exhibition. You know what, who I'm talking about.
I was actually curious, is it someone else with the same name? Or?
And I really enjoyed the three of the presentation, and I had a question that that is for maybe for the three of them, for the three of you, but this question of the mirror, I think, was reminding me of if you maybe have followed in the past the Zapatista movement. At a certain moment, there was an important shift in the strategy of the Zapatista movement, and actually the image, the poetry of Marcos was to call for breaking the mirror and breaking the mirror. And I think it's an important moment because there the mirror is the one between indigeneity and the belonging to the nation. That is obviously another mirror that is constructed on subalternity and on colonialism in the space of Latin America. So it's obviously a different configuration. But I think that what was interesting to me, linking it to the practice of thefting, to say it as a verb, rather than stealing, but is how you inscribe, like what Marcos was saying in that moment was to break the mirror, to break the chess table. There was an action of the break that was very important, and I think that in this station both basic income and theft and stealing call towards an appropriation of a common production and a distribution of common production, and one does it through an accent on the materiality of the act, and the other on the regulation of so there is a tension, I think, that is interesting, in the sense that once you break the mirror, the process of transition both plays on a materiality of performances that construct shifts and contradiction, which is the kind of points Ida was heading to. And then you have a problem in the practice of basic income, in which the problem of regulating is always a space of crystallizing this anti-hegemonic statement we were talking about yesterday into different ways of organizing social production. And in a sense, actually the basic income has two very different points of view. One is the one that somehow uses the basic income in order to delegate to the individual the relationship with the social rights and through the market. So I don't care about your education, I don't care about your health, because I delegate in a monetary form that to you. Or another that I think that is a bit of, is becoming a lost utopia of the social movement, that is this idea of a way of constructing, of reappropriating money as an instrument of exchange and circulation and cooperation that is not necessarily a tool of capital, no? Like, how can we reappropriate money as a practice? If you remember, in the MACBA in the 1999 and 2000, the big slogan was "Dinero gratis," no, free money, and that's in the sense of using that the tool of money as a practice of circulation of idea, of social production, etc., but escaping the concept of scarcity. So it's a very opposite sense of using basic income. One is reproducing scarcity and individuality in relation to the other one is abolishing scarcity. So I had this question: when you break the mirror, you have on the one hand these acts of invention, then on the limit of regulation, you have both sides of what is gonna be the whatever life.
And also because I mean this all this debate around the basic income and the Pancho's precision are very useful. It's a very complex and a very recurrent debate, because the basic income is only the first step in order a new political economy. Okay, it's impossible really that you don't transform deeply the productive structure and the financial structure and the tax and banking structure, and you want to speak about basic income. In sometimes the basic income is a kind of exit of politics. Okay. Okay, we are going to organize this kind of basic income with the precision, Pancho's precision, but we are we are thinking in these smart cities mediated through the market, okay? And the basic income is only another way in order to increase the aggregate demand of the economies, okay? This is bullshit, okay? It's impossible, because maybe this, in the second sense Pancho spoke, really is interesting that you can introduce the monetary flow in order to cope with the social emergency. For instance, in Europe, in Maghreb, in the most of parts of the global south, okay? But this is the first step, okay? The next step is this: you have to destroy the current productive structure, okay? In terms of capitalist governance of this structure. And this is not a big narrative. This is not an ideological approach to reality. This is not the gulag before us. It's only to have a big confidence in the rationality of the political activity. Okay, in other case, all these short circuits are a bit confused. Okay, because the best and the most effective redistribution policy is a good labor market strategy. Okay, and this labor market strategy is not the working class or Marxist approach and the dystopia of the wage work. Is only to think in a commons transformation perspective in order to change the productive structure. And if you put in this conceptual triangle, if you put capitalist structure, productive structure in one point, basic income in another one, and a good political strategy in order to change the forces politically active in this moment, I think that the things are more clear and more future-oriented, okay? It's not the end of the abolition of the war, the abolition of the activity, the end of scarcity. I suppose that is at least 150 before us, okay? There is all, it's not a good word, but there is a very complex and a very attractive and a very fascinating theory of the transition from the commons perspective. And this is anti-capitalist by definition, and it's hyper-politics by definition.
Actually, my consideration was not so much based on politics, but on technology and on the fact that production is no longer connected to human labor. So how can we speak about labor market but when it is mainly connected to service? So most of the young people, they work in restaurants, and you could get a coffee from the automat, but you can also get a coffee from a kind waitress. So it's not a production, not a question of production, but it's more a mental need, that you would like to have a coffee in a coffee shop where young Hungarian people work in London, for example, and you don't go to the automat to get your coffee. It's a construction.
You see the global picture, you go to Shanghai, and say, what is you have,
yes, this is.
You have at least to contemplate in the big regional economic areas, okay? And you have to contemplate the global picture of our world system.
No, this is true.
All the question of the consumption of the energy. What means this question that the labor is it's a very good tool as a heuristic dispositive in order to understand the new class composition. But it's bullshit if you really think that the material production is out of the world. It's simply a transfer, physical transfer, with a very, very important impact in the class composition, in the political and technical class composition, but it's a very complex political economy. Okay? And we have to think in this political economy. Look at Europe, okay? Look at Maghreb, or look at Mediterranean. Let alone speak of the Latin American countries, or let alone speak about the South Asian area.
Yeah, just to look a bit at Europe. The protests that they were talking about in Belgrade yesterday when we were visiting Rog, the housing, the urban areas that are being destroyed, the developers are from the United Arab Emirates. And so, of course, they have their Serbian mafia government cover-ups, but the money, the finance is actually coming from United Arab Emirates. In Egypt, a few years before Tahrir, before the revolution, actually there was a massive labor awakening in the textile sector, because the state was selling the state-owned factories, the state-owned industry, to Indian and Chinese multinationals. The workers in these factories, the unions are completely co-opted by the government. The workers in these factories were able to mobilize, rebel against their unions, and very strategically wait for the moment that the new capitalists were arriving to stage strikes and all kinds of actions. And because these new foreign managers were coming, of course they also have their Egyptian mafia partners. But because these new foreigners were arriving, they were afraid. And so they gave the workers 95% of their demands. So this is, I'm just giving you examples of how capital is actually traveling and changing local economies in the region. In Greece, most of the shipping, small and medium shipping fleet is bought by the Chinese. So it's true that the Greeks are angry at the Germans and the Europeans look like they're dictating the terms. But effectively, when people will be rebelling, they will be rebelling against the Chinese.
Yes, but
Group of artists organized 1 year ago to discuss the basic income for artists, because how this is structured in Nordic countries is that artists has a chance to get a grants from state or the private foundation, usually from state, and it creates certain inequality in the art because some doesn't get grants. So certain artists decided, let's organize and claim for the basic income so everybody gets certain amount of working as an artist, which will also break from this, the way how you exhibit and all these priorities, which makes art even more elitist. And when they organized, I was saying, this is bullshit. Basic income, if you make political struggle with the basic income, you are from the start. What you say, you are not seeing the global thing. You are not seeing the general political, economical thing, and you are becoming, you kind of agree to communicate with a state as your political partner or whatever. But, and I didn't participate, but what I see now, because some of my good friends are part of it, they became politicized in completely different way, which was not in the initial start. So what I want to say, even such a question, such a claim to have a very naive thing maybe, basic income, can politicize and did politicize. Yeah, just one.
I have a question concerning your comment. Is because I followed the work of Masrin, which was an activist group in Egypt, and they distributed video cameras, and what they told in a meeting, that they distributed video cameras to the workers of Port Said, these factory workers, and they could, the idea was that they could make a film about their lives, and then they would project it in public space. But the question is if this strategy succeeded and if the working class has a better condition in Port Said, or if this was a typical and very strong media activist strategy by Muslim group, but I don't know if it was effective now 5 years later, or would it have been more effective to meditate and eat less and think about alternative means of production or urban gardening, all this what is not connected to this direct fight for labor and better labor conditions. You know what I mean? Because I don't know how it is now the situation in these factories in Port Said for which the Egyptian media activists were fighting.
It's the other demands are a bigger fight and require a different kind of structure. Musserin were just breaking the veil of invisibility. Also, they were very quickly shut down. Very quickly, yes, but they cannot do public screenings. Yeah, they very quickly were shut. They did 2 public screenings. And the military council that took junta, that was in power, shut them down. A lot of them went to jail, were released.
And now it looks on the internet as if they would be the most successful activist group. Also, half of the work is probably censored, and I didn't find this direct democracy link.
No, I mean, I think the situation's been bad since 2012.
Okay, I propose we have a 5 minutes break. Is it okay? 5 minutes.